It was the year 1952, a year when austerity started to be shaken off. It was the year that Gough Whitlam was first elected to Parliament. Bob Menzies was a year into his second term. It was a time of innocence, a time of easygoing, laid-back enjoyment, as Australia's post-war boom started to get into gear. It was against this backdrop that a few young enthusiasts gathered in Cooler Park at Killara to form a new car club. A car club that survives to this day, 6 decades later. The North Shore Sporting Car Club. North Shore came about primarily because a group of young guys wanted to get involved in motorsport after attending one of the meetings at the old Parramatta Park track, which ignited so many motorsport careers in the early 1950s. This group of teenagers and early 20-somethings, many of whom had just come out of compulsory national service, wanted to join the Australian Sporting Car Club, but the membership fees were just too high. They had cheap old pre-war cars, some from the 20s, some from the 30s, and they mucked about with them and made them into competition machines. They doubled as their everyday transport, and at weekends became hotted up, stripped down competition cars for all manner of motorsport activities. The cars bore the names of a bygone era: Alvis, Austin, Morris and Riley, Singer, Sunbeam, Triumph and Vauxhall, with the odd Healey thrown in for good measure if you had a few quid to spare. But MG was the backbone of the early days. There were hill climbs at Foley's, just off Mona Vale Road, near the beachside suburb of the same name. Sprints at Mount Druitt and Castlereagh airstrips. Carners in paddocks in far-flung suburbs like Pennant Hills and Blacktown. North Shore members worked hard to establish other facilities, taking part in working bees at fledgling Silverdale Hill Climb or the early days of Amaroo. North Shore members were always in evidence at Bathurst race meetings at Easter and October as both competitors and key officials, and in 1960 formed the nucleus of the Australian Automobile Racing Club, which built and ran the Warwick Farm Circuit within the AJC's horse racing track near Liverpool. And North Shore members played key roles at New Blah in Orange, Catalina at Katoomba, at Mount Druitt, as well as the early days of Amaroo and Oran Park. As the 60s saw Australia really boom, the baby boomers started to make their mark, with rallying and trials drawing more and more interest at North Shore.
The 1964 Ampol trial, possibly the world's longest and toughest, was about to separate the weak from the strong, the prepared and the unprepared, the careful and the careless.
Circuit racing, however, was still important and dominant. Drivers like Jim Lang Peach, Nick Ledingham and Lacus Manicus competing as proud North Shore members at races like the burgeoning Bathurst 500 at Mount Panorama.
But these are the dying moments when drivers talk to their machines, coax them round.
As the 60s gave way to the uncertainty of the 70s, rallying started to become more popular for North Shore members, although the club still ran the 6-hour relay race each year at Amaroo Park, along with super sprints and hill climbs. Dirt circuits at Amaroo were popular events, and the club started to run a state championship rally at Bateman's Bay that became one of the premier events on the annual calendar. Datsun 1600s, Ford Escorts and Cortinas, the odd Mini and even a few big V8s had taken the place of those old pre-war jalopies of the early days. And as the sport became more and more specialised, competition cars were towed to venues, not driven, and the days of driving to work Monday to Friday and racing your car on weekends started to disappear. The club never stopped innovating, coming up with new events like the Motor Sprint at Amaroo. Rally sprint that used every surface at the Amaroo complex and was even covered on Nine's Wide World of Sport. Rallying really took over in the 80s as club members like Miles Sandy pursued and won the State Rally Championship. Howard Grove, a long-time stalwart, was a front-runner, as were the Sparkses. John, Sid, Carol and the burgeoning clan were tireless workers and competitors. Along with them, Club members like Rod Turnbull and Brett Middleton competed for works teams at Rally Australia. As the 1990s came and went in a blur, the world was changing. The noughties saw the club running a state round in the Genolan Hampton Forest, but membership dwindled. Despite this, the spirit of the club fought on, and while some thought North Shore wouldn't make its 60th, many had faith. And here we are, celebrating 6 decades of motorsport. A long way from those early 1950s when it was all about simplicity and austerity. Today, motorsport costs a lot, and there's a lot harder to be involved in. But as we enter our 7th decade, North Shore is growing in health with some new ideas and new events. The Rally of the Bay at Bateman's has returned and is again the Premier State Championship Rally. The club's running a new development rally, a round of the State Carnacross Championship, and many beginners and learners, carners, to help young drivers break into the sport.
How many times have you driven a car before?
It's my first time.
First time ever. How old are you?
13.
Today we have had club members competing on the world stage, with Molly Taylor competing in Europe and winning the ladies' title in the European Rally Championship. Dale Moscat occupying the silly seat alongside wild Russian Evgeny Novikov, and Bruce Garland successfully tackling the toughest event of all, the Dakar Rally, as well as winning our own Australian Safari and Round Australia Rally.
There's always a question of sanity. Into that Atacama Desert, which hasn't rained for 300 years, and it looks like Mars. There's no bugs, there's no flies, nothing lives there. And that's fairly gruelling.
On the home front, North Shore members and 4 times Australian champion Coral Taylor continues to call the corners for Neil Bates. Brett Middleton has dominated the Australian SUV Rally Championship. And Dale Moscat is back in the ARC, running with the hard-charging Scott Pedder. So tonight, let's spare a thought for those young blokes back in Cooler Park in 1952 and the pioneering spirit that gave us the mighty North Shore Sporting Car Club. And let's look forward to our 70th birthday and beyond.